Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 10 o'clock here in the morning, Calgary, Alberta, Saturday, October 30th. I'm happy to be here. Actually, I'm not really happy to be here, but this is Worldwide Epidemic of Child Abuse and Human Rights Abuses. I'm happy to be a voice. I'm not happy to be doing these shows, and I just wanted to be one more voice out here to talk about the issues, really the whole worldwide issue of child abuse and human rights abuses. And I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, so I'm studying all the time. I'm also in between courses at MRU because I can't afford to go, and sadly enough, and so I continue to study all the time and looking for information out there just to stay current with what's happening, and looking at older information as well, and searching all the time for new information. And, so like I said, I'm not really happy to be doing these shows. I'm happy to be a voice, and we all need to stand up and be a voice and stand up for human rights, child rights. Children do have rights. Not very many people seem to realize that. That's why they're abusing their children and abusing other people's children. But children do have rights. They have the right to life, first of all. The right to safety, security, protection, health care, a roof over their head, shelter, food, clothing, all the necessities, all the life-giving necessities. They actually have the right to a loving home, caring, nurturing home. They have the right to education, government, freedom, religion. They have the right to their own heritage and their own nationality. They have rights, And every time somebody abuses a child, they take those rights away. And I'm just glad to be one more voice. So, yes, I am glad in this respect to be here to be able to talk about this stuff. Not a professional. I'm a private citizen paying to do my own blog talk shows. I'm a survivor of child abuse myself. And I just hate what I see around this world. I really do. I can't fathom why anybody would want to hurt a child in the first place, and why people would continue to hurt children. And it's never made sense to me why anybody would want to hurt anybody on purpose. Growing up in that situation, most people would think, well, it's just the norm, for you if you grew up in it. Doesn't matter. It broke my heart. It broke my whole. It really destroyed my life. And until about 3.5 years ago, when I got off the couch and said, okay, enough of being happy that other people are out here doing this work, trying to save children's lives, trying to help people out. I want to be involved too. So that's where I'm coming from. About 3.5 years ago, I decided to get off the couch and get busy and start talking and start making some noise here, with everybody else, just to be one more voice to add to all the others who are out here talking about this stuff. So that's why I'm doing these shows. And so you have to listen at your own discretion. I talk about everything dealing with abuse, and it is a sensitive subject. If you're not comfortable listening to the subject and any subject like this on any program or television show, you have to turn it off. It's your own discretion. You have to know what's comfortable for you to listen to. And young people under the age of 18, I ask that you have someone listen to the show with you, because really I'm all about protecting children's rights, protecting children's lives, and you have the right to be protected. And when you're listening to anything and you're sitting in chat rooms anywhere, you really have to be careful, because at any given time there really are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of child sexual predators out there. Just check the FBI's website. They talk about it quite a bit, because they're trying to break down these rings, these child sex rings, and these pedophiles and whatnot, trying to stop them, right? So you want to keep yourself very, very safe. And in order to do that, you have to know how to keep yourself safe online. So if you don't have that information and you haven't found out yet how to protect yourself when you're online, just start typing into your browser, internet safety for children, online safety, internet safety for families, things like this, right? It will bring up websites with lots of great information on how to keep yourself safe online, right? It's so important that you do that. So that's why I ask every show, I always tell people, and I say this on every show, it's just so important to me, right? And so, I just found this PDF here, and I found it actually just because I was looking around for the worldwide statistics on child abuse, Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, sort of looking into that, and ran across this PDF from the WHO, the World Health Organization. I've never seen these PDFs before, but really good information. So I popped the link into the chat room, www.WHO.int, and then /violence_injury_prevention, and then /violence/global_campaign /EN/CHAP3 CHAP3.pdf. So that's where I found this on the WHO's website. the World Health Organization's website. Awesome stuff. It's chapter 3. It's called Child Abuse and Neglect by Parents and Other Caregivers. What I liked about it was it really went into all the details around the world of what they know as far as what's recorded, what's been reported, what is being reported. As far as the worldwide issue of child abuse and neglect by parents and caregivers, a lot of the information that I normally look at is all national within the United States and Canada, sort of like North American statistics and North American information. But this is a sort of a look at from the WHO, the World Health Organization, at what's going on around the world with child abuse. And so this is kind of really something that I find very helpful in my studies, and also just to give people an idea of the seriousness of child abuse really around the world. It's horrible. It's just not, sort of set in one part of the world. It doesn't have anything really to do with economics. It doesn't have anything to do with whether it's a third world country or the United States or anywhere else, because child abuse exists everywhere. And so I think that's really important for people to realize that it's not just one country where children are being abused, or 2 or 3 countries. I mean, this is going on around the world, and it has been forever. And I like this PDF because they sort of bring out the whole background on child abuse. It says background, and I'm reading right from this PDF. It says child abuse has for a long time been recorded in literature, art, and science in many parts of the world. Reports of infanticide, mutilation, abandonment, and other forms of violence against children date back to ancient civilizations. And the historical record is also filled with reasons of unkempt, weak, and malnourished children cast out by families to fend for themselves, and children who have been sexually abused. For a long time also there have existed charitable groups and others concerned with children's well-being who have advocated the protection of children. Nevertheless, the issue did not receive widespread attention until the medical profession or the general public, by the medical profession or the general public until 1962, with the publication of a seminal work, The Battered Child Syndrome by Kemp et al. And so that's 1962 when it actually started getting worldwide attention. So I mean, that just tells you, this is ridiculous. No, I don't know. It's absolutely crazy. Now I know, like Charles Dickens, he was the author Charles Dickens was writing about the situation of children in industrial or post-industrial England with Oliver Twist and Great Expectations, and a lot of his books, looking in at the world, I mean not the world, but a view of England's society and how messed up it really was, and how that was really a picture of most of the world. And, back in those days, people didn't really think twice about abusing children. It was you could. It was not illegal. There were no rights. There was no human rights in the 1800s. I mean, we're talking, this is really, really new stuff. And this is really recent. Human rights didn't come into play until 1942, really. And a lot of people died. A lot of people died for that. And people are still dying, for human rights. And we have to remember that this has not been something that has been around for 2,000 years. This has only been in not even the last 100 years. So that's why it's so important that we all raise our voice, get involved, and back up these people that started this movement to protect children, to protect people, period. Human rights, right? And especially children, because they are so vulnerable. They are the vulnerable sector of society, as well as people with disabilities, people with disabilities and the elderly and things like this, people who can't protect themselves. And children are in that group, and they are really the most vulnerable group. They don't have a voice, and they don't have people, they do have child rights. They have rights. It's just that if no one around them sees that those rights are protected, then of course the child just doesn't have any rights. It's very, very sad. And it's not just the United States or Canada. I mean, this is worldwide, and that's why I'm doing this one show on the weekend to talk about the worldwide issue, because I study international community development as well as everything else. So, I'm looking at the whole worldwide picture of the whole issue of human rights abuses, child abuse, right? It's absolutely horrible. It says, the term battered child syndrome was coined to characterize the clinical manifestations of serious physical abuse in young children. It says, now 4 decades later, there is clear evidence that child abuse is a global problem. It occurs in a variety of forms and is deeply rooted in cultural, economic, and social practices. Solving this global problem, however, requires a much better understanding of its occurrence in a range of settings, as well as of its causes and consequences in these settings. So it says, how are child abuse and neglect defined? Cultural issues. They said here, any global approach to child abuse must take into account the differing standards and expectations for parenting behavior in the range of cultures around the world. Culture is a society's common fund of beliefs and behaviors and its concepts of how people should conduct themselves. Included in these concepts are ideas about the acts of omission or commission might constitute abuse and neglect. In other words, culture helps define the generally accepted principles of child rearing and care of children. Different cultures have different rules about what are acceptable parenting practices. Some researchers have suggested that views on child rearing across cultures might diverge to such an extent that agreement on what practices are abusive or neglectful may be extremely difficult to reach. And they have all their references and stuff and footnotes and whatnot here. You can check this out on this PDF. It's just awesome. That's just the truth of it right there. And they have talked, there's a lot of people talking about that the term abuse, what it means is very much dependent upon the person who you're talking to. Doctors, lawyers, judges, parents, teachers, the average person on the street, myself, and everybody else all have an idea of what abuse is and what neglect is. And some people don't think that bashing a child's head in is abuse, right? They think, some people really honestly think that it's okay to rape a child, right? Now, I don't know. To me, there's something wrong with those people that think that, right? I mean, obviously, right? I mean, I'm a survivor of child abuse, and I think there was something extremely wrong with that. And so, I'm coming from a survivor talking there. But the thing is no adult wants to have their head smashed in, so why would anybody think that a child would want to have their head smashed in? No adult wants to be raped. Why would a child want to be raped? No adult wants to be beaten and battered to a pulp. It's very painful. I don't know if any of you have experienced that, but I certainly have. And it's very, very painful, and it's very damaging to your spirit and to your soul and to your mental, your whole psyche, right? And so if you've never been attacked, it's not something I would wish on anybody. And the thing is that it's very painful, and you never forget it. And the whole issue is that no adult wants that. I mean, I can imagine if you stood 5 adults up and you said, okay, we're going to batter you with this big stick, and we're going to beat you just like as if you were a small child, so we're going to put a 350-pound football player in here, and he's going to take care of the business, right? And you can't tell me that any one of those 5 adults after taking that beating would sit there and say that they actually thought they wanted that. After their teeth are busted in and the broken bones and cracked head and I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit graphic here, but you know what though? We have to realize and come to an agreement and an understanding that abuse is abuse, and no adult would want to have their face smashed in, so I can't imagine why anybody would think it's okay to do that to a child, right? Bouncing kids off of the wall, no adult would want to be picked up and bounced off a wall. It's extremely painful, you know what I mean? Coming at you from a survivor, I know. So the whole thing is that people have to stop minimizing abuse, first of all, and put themselves in that child's shoes, and then say, would I want that to happen to me? Would I want to be scalded and burned and have my skin peeling off? Would I want to be raped and sodomized, on a weekly basis or daily basis by somebody in the family, Uncle Joe or Aunt Jane? Or no, you wouldn't. And so would you, honestly, we have to put ourselves in these children's shoes if we're going to get a clear picture of how extremely wrong abuse is. But see, so many people think it's okay to kill their children. You can ask them, these psycho crazy people who's sitting in these prisons right now, who have killed their children. Some of them would actually tell you, sure, it was great, because they're sick. They're so sick. And, not that they deserve to be abused, because I'm fighting for all human rights. I'm just saying that there's a lot of sick people out there, and it doesn't matter what culture they come from. It doesn't matter what country they come from. It makes no difference what race or nationality a person is. There's no prejudice here. I'm just saying that there's many, many individuals who are very, very sick, and they think it's okay to harm children and to do horrible acts and horrible things to children. It's not, and it will never be right. Because you know why? If it's not okay to do an adult, then it's not okay to do it to a child, right? So it's not okay to bash a child's head in. It's not okay to bash an adult's head in. Why would anybody think that it's okay to hurt a child when they know it's not okay to hurt an adult? People have to start thinking of children as valuable part of our society, just as adults are. That's the whole issue. People don't see children as valuable. They don't see children as our future. They don't see children as having rights, and they don't count them as being a part of society that is really our most valuable asset. And so we have to change the way we feel about children, the way we think about children, and stop hurting them, right? It makes me so sick, right, when I think about people thinking it's okay to hurt a child. It's not. And so, no one can agree on what child abuse is, and that's a huge issue around the world, because it's hard to get people on the same page if they think it's okay to take a wooden board and give a child 30, 40 whacks with it, right? And then the other country is saying, absolutely not, that's wrong, because you can kill a child doing that, because that's the truth. They can have a heart attack. I don't know, have you ever been beaten like that? Well, I have. It can cause a lot of damage to your heart and to your neck, and you can have all kinds of physical problems, as well as the psychological damage it's done. So people don't want to take that into account. They think, oh, it's no big deal. No, it is a big deal. Talk to some survivors, you know what I mean? It's very much a big deal. So, parents just don't want to put themselves and caregivers don't want to put themselves in the children's shoes. They just want to hurt these children and think it was perfectly okay to do it. My parents thought it was great. So, that's the difference between people. People are sick. And I'm sorry, but this is my show, and I can stand up for children if I want to. It makes me extremely angry that people around the world think it's okay to rape children. It's not. It's not even okay to rape an adult. So why would it be okay to rape a child? Rape it's against the law. I hope everybody knows. And the thing is that a lot of people think, hey, no, it's perfectly fine to rape a child. You know what? It is completely wrong. If it's not okay to rape an adult, then it's not okay to rape a child. See, that's where there's a big difference in the way people feel about children. And they don't care about children. And even in North America, we don't care about our children, because if we did, we would not be doing what we're doing to them as a society, as a whole. There wouldn't be the abuse going on that's going on here in the United States and Canada if we actually cared about our children. There's a lot of people that don't care about their children. They absolutely don't. And so that's why they hurt their children, and they do all these horrible things to their children. And so, yeah, it's got to change. It absolutely has to change. And if we don't stand up and start making some noise, it's not going to change. And so I'm going to make noise on every medium that I can find, because I've got nothing better to do with the rest of my life. I figured, hey, if I can do one thing in this world that's going to try to make some difference for some children out here, then I'm going to do it, And we all need to be doing that. It's a huge issue, and it's going on right under our noses in our own homes. And that's what really burns me, is that abuse, 90 to 95% of abuse happens within the home. So who's turning the blind eyes? I know. My whole family did, and they still do. They don't care that I'm trying to get over and heal from the issues of growing up in that home. They're in denial, They just want to pretend that nothing like that happened. And it's like, no, well, you can pretend all you want, but I know different. And the whole issue is that people are so willing to walk away and let a child be abused because they don't want to get involved. They don't want to, because that means, maybe dad will have to go to jail. And then who's going to cook the barbecue steaks? Who's going to do the barbecue? It's like, well, who cares? If somebody's abusing a child, they need to do the time. They need to be brought up on charges. And that gets that child some help instead of just leaving children in the home. So this is a huge issue, not only North America-wide, but worldwide. It's absolutely ridiculous what's going on around the world. But I hope you will check this PDF out. This is just crazy information about what's going on in Egypt, what's going on in India, which seem to be two of the highest rates of child abuse in the world as far as punishment and abuse goes. They report the highest some statistical measures of some different types of abuse, right? And absolutely horrible. I mean, my God, we got to do something. We can't even get it figured out over here in North America, let alone around the world. We got to do something. We got to do it now. And it says that it appears that there is general agreement across many cultures that child abuse should not be allowed, and virtual unanimity, that is a hard word, in this respect where very harsh disciplinary practices and sexual abuse are concerned, right? So there's lots of people standing up and saying, hey, this is wrong. And it's just you can't. There's certain people you can't convince of it, and that's these people that are out here hurting their children and doing these horrible things to their children, thinking it's perfectly okay, and it's not. It's types of abuse. This is the International Society for the Prevention of Child Abuse and Neglect recently compared definitions of abuse from 58 countries and found some commonality in what was considered abusive. So in 1999, the WHO Consultation on Child Abuse Prevention drafted the following definition, and they have their own definition here. Child abuse or maltreatment consists of constitutes all forms of physical and or emotional ill treatment, sexual abuse, neglect, or negligent treatment, or commercial or other exploitation, resulting in actual or potential harm to the child's health, survival, development, or dignity in a context of relationship of responsibility, trust, or power. And this is a good one because sometimes they don't throw that dignity in there, and I think that's a huge one because I know all about that. I know what it's like to have everything taken away from you, right? Some definitions focus on the behaviors or actions of adults, while others consider abuse to take place if there is harm or the threat of harm to a child. The distinction between behavior, regardless of the outcome, and impact or harm is a potentially confusing one if parental intent forms part of the definition, right? Whether it was intentional or not. Some experts consider as abused those children who have been inadvertently harmed through the actions of a parent, while others require that harm to the child be intended for the act to be defined as abusive. Some of the literature on child abuse explicitly includes violence against children in institutional or school settings. So it says the definition given above covers a broad spectrum of abuse. This chapter focuses primarily on acts of commission and omission by parents or caregivers that result in harm to the child. That's sort of the general definition of abuse. It's an act that either, it's either the action or inaction by a parent or caregiver or whoever that result in harm to the child, right? In particular, it explores the prevalence, causes, and consequences of 4 types of child maltreatment by caregivers, namely, and they list them here, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and neglect. And they go on to talk about this, and this is just huge. Physical abuse of a child is defined as those acts of commission by a caregiver that cause actual physical harm or have the potential for harm. Sexual abuse is defined as those acts where a caregiver uses a child for sexual gratification. Emotional abuse includes the failure of a caregiver to provide an appropriate and supportive environment and includes acts that have an adverse effect on the emotional health and the development of a child. Such acts include restricting a child's movements, denigration, ridicule, threats, and intimidation, discrimination, rejection, and other non-physical forms of hostile treatment. Neglect refers to the failure of a parent to provide for the development of the child, where the parent is in a position to do so, right, in one or more of the following areas: health, education, emotional development, nutrition, shelter, safe living conditions. Neglect is thus distinguished from circumstances of poverty in that neglect can occur only in cases where reasonable resources are available to the family or caregiver. The manifestations of these types of abuse are further described in Box 3.1, so you can go and check that out, right? And then they talk here about the extent of the problem, fatal abuse, non-fatal abuse, right? Fatal abuse, information on the numbers of children who die each year as a result of abuse comes primarily from death registries or mortality data. According to the World Health Organization, there were an estimated 57,000 deaths attributed to homicide among children under 15 years of age in 2000. So global estimates, and now it's 2010, right? So almost 2011. So who knows how many there are now. Global estimates of child homicide suggest that infants and very young children are at greatest risk, with rates for the 0 to 4-year-old age group more than double those of the 5 to 14-year-olds. And that's just the truth, and we see that rolling out here in the headlines every day. Little infants and toddlers from 0 to 4 years old seem to be taking up the majority of the headlines as far as the deaths by murder from whether it's a parent or caregiver, boyfriend, girlfriend of the parent or whatever. Somebody's murdering these children, right? And they seem to be in most of those headlines that roll out seem to be toddlers and infants, right? And then you see the odd older child in there too, but not usually. It's almost all little small infants and babies and newborns, all the way to 2-3 years old, and some 4, but mainly it's like 2 and 3 that we're seeing out there. I know I look at the headlines all the time, and I'm because we're continually looking at this stuff with to try to stop and prevent child abuse. I'm a volunteer Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. This is what we do. We're looking at this stuff all the time. And it's horrible what we're seeing out here, and this is going on around the world. So not only are children are dying around the world, right? This just breaks my heart because I study the whole worldwide issue of child rights and child like the issues with children around the world, right? Because it is my goal to do as much as I can worldwide. And so, the whole issue of war and poverty and kids dying, everywhere around the world from hunger and starvation, not just in Africa. I mean, kids are dying in Russia, living on the streets. They're dying of malnutrition as well. I mean, diseases, all kinds of stuff. My God, it's not just Africa. But, you think about the amounts of people in Africa. I mean, my God, it's horrible. And so that's sad enough. And then when you see all these people murdering their children, I mean, it's just like, oh my God, these people, they have a choice. They can give that child up for adoption. They could give that child up to the proper authorities and be free. They don't have to abuse that child. There's no reason for that. There's no reason for anybody in North America to abuse a child. There's all kinds of help out there, and even though that help is not the greatest, and we all know it's not a perfect system, that's why I'm here doing these shows, because we all need to start coming up with the perfect system that's going to work, right? I mean, it's very unfortunate that some of these children get removed from their homes, put into foster care, and end up dead. Or they get removed from their homes, end up in foster care, and just continue to be abused. We all know this happens. I personally knew people that went through this. So the whole issue is that it's not a perfect system. We really need to work on it. That's why I'm doing this show. It's a call to action. It's like, let's do something in our own communities, nationwide, worldwide. Let's do what we can. Now, around the world, these people, half of these families that have children, like around the world, can't even afford to feed them for 2 days. Let alone they can't come up with any food. Period. But they keep popping out these babies, right? And I do feel bad for them, because I'm thinking, they love their children. They wish they could provide for them. And half of those people don't hurt their children, except for those crazy sick people that are raping children, thinking that they can cure HIV because, they slept with a baby, they raped a baby or something. I mean, this is happening, people, in Africa. But the thing is there's a lot of people that do love their children over there, and mothers crying and weeping because their babies are dying. And I do feel bad for them. But who I feel really bad for? I feel more sympathy and more empathy for the children who were abused by their parents and not wanted, abused and killed and murdered at the hands of their parents, when their parents could just give them up for adoption or give them up to the proper authorities. And we really need to work on the systems here. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous that $104 billion, that's the last count that I could see out there on any statistical information. $104 billion every year is spent in the United States because of child abuse. Where's the money going? It's obvious it's not working. The system is not working. $104 billion. Where's the help for these children? Where's the programs to help young mothers and young parents to stop and think before they hurt their child? I think that young people that have children should have to have a mentor. I really do. I think they should be assigned a mentor for the first 3-4 years of that child's life to make sure that child's not being abused. I mean, there's people out there killing their kids because they interrupt a game of Farmville. There was a young girl, I don't even know how old she was, but she killed her baby because the baby interrupted her time on Farmville. I mean, how young was this girl? I don't even know what her age was. Can't remember. She was young. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. Makes me sick, There's people out there that would love to have a child and can't have children, and the adoption process is absolutely ridiculous. And it's like, here's people out there killing their babies just because they're interrupting their time on Farmville on Facebook. I mean, give me a break. That girl needs to be sent away for some huge psychological help. She needs help, and she needs to go away for a long, long time so that she doesn't pop out more children and kill them too, right? So this is the issue. People are killing their kids, And the whole issue of fatal abuse, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous here in the United States. So you can imagine what's going on around the world where it's not even recorded. Nobody even knows people are killing their children. And we know this is a fact, that people are killing their children around the world and just burying them or whatever because they're allowed to do that in those countries, right? Now, over here we have laws and rules, thank God, that we're supposed to all be adhering to. But in a lot of places, we don't have that stuff, right? So I hope you will check this article out here from the WHO, the World Health Organization, www.who.int. And it's a great PDF. It just goes on and on and on. We might continue to look at it next week. So thanks, everybody, for tuning into my shows. I appreciate it. Do what you can to help save children's lives. Get busy in your own community. That's what I'm doing. Get really locally involved and help people out. Get nationally involved. If you want to help and be a part of Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, just contact us. If you want to get involved with any group, child help, any group who's helping to save children's lives, please do. We need everybody. You don't have to be a survivor of child abuse to get involved, and you also don't have to be. You don't have to have children. You have to care, and you have to want to see change in this world to help make this world a better place for children. Right? We really all have to do it. This is our responsibility. And the parents obviously who are killing their kids and abusing them don't care. We have to care, right? So let's care. Let's get busy and let's do something. So thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.